Good evening. We're commencing the hearing tonight on April 27th, 2021. We have the opening statement. This is sets the ground rules. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Caldwell Hearing Examiner for April 27th, 2021. I serve in both a decision-making capacity and an advisory capacity to the mayor and city council. There are two types of public hearings that this commission conducts. The first is legislative hearing, whereby we formulate recommendations on certain land use requests. My recommendations are then forwarded onward to the city council, who makes decisions on legislative matters. The second type of public hearing is quasi-judicial in nature, meaning that the requests are specific to a parcel of land. I am authorized to make decisions on requests for special use permits, variances, preliminary plat, time extensions, and planned unit developments that do not involve the subdivision of land. However, any decision I may make tonight is by no means final. Anyone that believes he or she has been aggrieved by my decision has the right to file an appeal to the city council. On quasi-judicial requests that involve the subdivision of land, rezones, and annexation, I am authorized to only make recommendations to the city council, who will make the final decision. The hearing procedures, as required by Idaho Code, are as follows. One, the staff will first present a report on the application. The applicant or the applicant's representative will then present the summary of the request. Testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by testimony from those in a neutral position, followed by those in opposition. I will allow the applicant or applicant's representative rebuttal. Number 5, after the rebuttal testimony is given, public testimony is closed, and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed unless I reopen the testimony. The time limits for the applicant are 10 minutes, and the others in favor, neutral, opposed, and rebuttal are allowed 5 minutes. I accept oral written testimony from those in attendance, but only if you've signed the sign-up sheet to speak available at the front of the room and have been sworn in. When testifying before me, you must come to the podium, state your full name and address, and acknowledge that you've been sworn in. I ask that everyone treat all parties with fairness and respect, and please turn off your cell phones now. I'm a volunteer hearing examiner and receive a small compensation for my efforts. I am charged by law to keep a clear record of the proceedings, consider factual testimony, and to stay within cities and states' rules and regulations. We, the city staff, thank you for your courtesy to us and to others as we move through the process. Thank you very much. The first consent calendar action item is to approve minutes of the March 23rd, 2021 meeting, and that has been done with staff. I hereby approve of the minutes. In no old business and section 3 in new business, the first action item listed on the agenda for this evening is case number ANN 21-1, PUD-21-1, and that will be continued to the May 11th, 2021 hearing, this time in this place. So if anyone is here in regards to item 1, the let's see, well, I don't see the code word for it, but case number ANN 2101, we'll review that at the next hearing. And that brings us to action item number 2, case number SUP 21-5, a request for special use permit for Lexington Apartments, an 84-unit multifamily development proposal in a C3 service commercial zone in Sky Ranch Business Phase 2, consisting of 3.65 acres. The properties are located on the southeast corner of Adam Smith Avenue and Thomas Jefferson Street. Approval of this special use permit is contingent on the approval of the final plat amendment in addition to the special use permit. And with that, I will turn the time over to the staff for their staff report on this. Oh, wait a minute. I forget, we we have to swear in those who wish to testify. So if you would all please stand, and Lori will swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony will be in this matter tonight to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
Thank you very much. Let's proceed with, this action item, and, Ms. Root, okay. Katie will present the staff report. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Katie Phillips, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, and I have been sworn in. Tonight before you is a request for special use permit for Lexington Apartments. The development consists of 84 living units on parcels R14895-133, R14895-136, and R14895-137 at the corner of Adam Smith Avenue and Thomas Jefferson Street. Multifamily housing requires special use permit approval in the service commercial zone, the C3 zone. The comprehensive plan zoning designation is commercial and service. The development is comprised of 3 three-story 24-plex units and 1 12-plex. The proposed development meets the density of the comprehensive plan as well as parking and landscaping requirements. Currently, the project site is comprised of 3 parcels. It is the intention of the applicant to combine the parcels, and the approval of the special permit will be contingent upon amending the final plat. And I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Katie. The question, I guess it is actually for the applicant, but I was hoping to see a little more in the design of the structures, and I'll let the applicant address that. There's let's see, I'm just digging up the plan here. Now there's a question about dedication of the right-of-way on this one. That they have to front. Is that this case? No?
Don't believe so.
Okay. My mistake. And the amenities and open space on this, just, well, the information is a little vague, but, you know, what are we looking at in the amenities and open space on this? Does it seem adequate to the needs of these types of residents?
Staff believes so. There's going to be a dog park, tot lot, I think barbecue pit, clubhouse. Okay. So just to be clear, this is not a planned unit development, so amenities are not required, but the applicant has chosen to include amenities with the project.
Yeah, I was hoping that was the case. With that, I have no further questions. We'll ask the applicant to make a presentation, please. Mr. Carlo? Cole, I'm sorry. And,
with an exhibit.
Yeah, state your name, please.
Solon Carlson.
And you testified that, you're sworn in?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And your address, please?
Sorry, address is 2209, Manitou Avenue, Boise.
Thank you.
Yeah, road.
Yes, please. Is this in the staff report?
No.
Okay.
I got one.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, he's entering that as an exhibit.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Right, perfect. Just wanted to give you also a little background about our development team. So I'm excited to be here tonight and excited to come back to Caldwell. I graduated from college back in the nineties. So I'm happy to be back and hopefully participate in the community again.
Cool.
So thank you for having us. Our development team, basically has over 40 years of experience, both on the development side and also running, multifamily, rehabbing, kind of every facet. I also operate and own a property management company. Additional members that will be included on our team, New Design, they've already participated in this community, Faith Landing, and I think they've done a few other projects, on the multifamily side, so. And then Scott Hedrick Construction, who has also, done a fair amount locally, so. And, one of the reasons that we, have chosen this particular site, and Caldwell, as you all know, kind of the explosive growth that you've witnessed and experienced over the last several years, and the Sky Ranch Business Park, has done a phenomenal job to really attract a lot of good jobs. And with over 1,000 jobs, I think it's several hundred more, we feel that the need for additional housing for those workers is critical, so. And then, obviously the whole Treasure Valley is anticipated to need an additional, 5,200 units over the coming years. The site, as we've already mentioned, is 3.65 acres, and, it's ideally located next to schools, retail shopping, and of course, the college, with access to both 84 and Highway 2026. We're looking at doing, for Lexington Apartments as a market rate project, to kind of fill that need. And there's been a lot of, tax credit, so this, I think, kind of fills that other aspect to kind of round it off. The mix, you've kind of already heard, 3-story buildings, and then we're looking at 24 one-bedroom, one-bath, units, and then the balance 60, 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. And then as far as the amenities, if you kind of look at that site plan, we're basically gonna include a clubhouse with an on-site office to manage everything, a lobby, community entertaining area. So really, we wanna have it community-centric, so our residents can actually come participate, have their graduations, other events, in that space. Directly on the backside of that is a large barbecue area. We're gonna have kind of a little kitchen area on the inside, and then just kind of a nice entertaining space with gazebo, and then right next to that is gonna be a top lot. And we chose that area since it's obviously the back location, so it's in the safest area for children to kind of play. Additionally, what you see in blue are gonna be, carports. And so we may change that slightly, but the objective is to have one covered unit per unit, or excuse me, one covered parking space per unit. And then those white spaces are actually, garages to offer additional parking, for those residents that choose that. We're gonna have a fenced-in, kind of pet area, so the residents can kind of take and have their pets kind of run off leash and have their own little space. We have, plenty of, bike storage throughout the site to accommodate our residents. And then we have, plenty of open space. I think, because we only needed 10% or so we far exceed that. As far as construction materials, and I apologize, we weren't able to get kind of an elevation prepared. But construction materials, we're looking at, materials that are gonna be more like hardy planks, long-lasting, good durable materials, energy efficient, and then also low maintenance. So we're gonna look at, doing some vertical and horizontal siding along with stucco and or cultured stone to provide some of that architectural relief on buildings. Interiors will have modern wood cabinet finishes, granite quartz counters, and or quartz counters. And then, stainless steel appliances. And then all units will feature full-size washer dryer. And this is, I just wanted to kind of attach a picture of a recent project that we completed in Meridian, just to give you an idea, and,
Good.
so,
Is that it?
that's it.
Yeah, I do have some questions I noted, on the design of the structures, the architectural aspects of the structures.
Yes.
We generally like to have something specific in this type of application. You presented this, recent one in Meridian, and, is that typical, or is that just sort of showing the quality of that, or is this actually what we're going to see?
This is showing just some of those architectural reliefs, and you'll see as good, if not better, quality on this project.
Okay, you can tell somewhat from the building footprints that there's, you have your, the changes in the wall structure, various architectural things, articulated wall space, but, we're hoping for a little bit more.
And I realized I did not print the floor plans on, but I think in basically I want to say we do have our floor plan attached to it.
Yeah, my concern would be so much as the floor plan, but as the site design itself. And, I'm just having a hard time getting a feel for the exterior space and what that's going to look like. Your description was very helpful, with the fencing and so forth. It just seems pretty symmetrical. Is there, where's the, is the green going to be, fairly elaborate kind of landscaping, and, is this going to be, maintained by the homeowners association? How are you going to approach the landscape?
It will, everything that we own, manage, to either for ourselves or third party. We always have a professional landscape company to do that. As far as amenities, we'll definitely have, well, not amenities, but just landscape. We'll have trees, a lot of vegetation. That's important. It kind of it softens any kind of structural element to it.
Yeah, there's just, it's hard to visualize this, it just looks, like a lot of pavement, and, looking to, make that a little more amenable, for the residents to be outside. And,
what I can do is I can pull up, kind of a general concept. I asked my architect to try to get us some elevation concept. But I can show you if you'd like.
you have, I have your exhibit here, but again, we're gonna take a look at that in the sense that, the city does have guidelines.
Yes.
For the design, and landscaping and so forth, and, we'd like to take that approach as far as, using those guidelines for the, the architectural and landscaping aspects of this. And, they're fairly broad, but, the bottom line here is we're trying to get the best product that we can.
Absolutely.
And that's this line of questioning where I'm going with this. There's, so much you can do with the ordinance, but it's also becomes, what's livable and sustainable, and that's, what I hope to see a little bit more of. This is a fairly minimal application, and it really makes it hard to, understand that, you know, the way the environment's going to look and how attractive it might be to the residents, to enjoy that site. That really, is all the questions I've had on that, and, I don't think we have any more people testifying. Debbie, you have, comments on that?
Yes, Mr. Hearing Examiner, there are design guidelines for the structures as put out there, and that should be adhered to. I didn't realize that the landscape plan was not done. Katie is fresh at her job, and so we'll make sure that we shouldn't have brought your application forward without that plan being complete. But the landscape plan must be done by a professional landscape architect. It must be submitted for approval to this body, and the landscape code is actually a zoning code and ordinance, not just the guidelines that the design guidelines are.
Thank you. Exactly. So, I thank you for your testimony, and, there appears to be no one else here, for that. Did you have any more comments in regards to what, Mr. Root said?
No, we will adhere to, you know, all the guidelines and some, so. Yes.
Okay, I appreciate it, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And, if there's no one else to testify, with that, I will close this hearing and look at the decision phase. Okay. In case number SUP 210005, the Lexington Apartments, we've dealt with the findings of facts. The Caldwell Hearing Examiner accepts the facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and the evidence list. All adopted city ordinances, standards, and codes are used in evaluating the application. The proposed use is conditionally permitted by the terms of ordinance and is subject to conditions of approval. In conclusion of the law, the Caldwell Hearing Examiner has the authority to hear the case in order that it be approved or denied. The public notice requirements were met, and the hearing was conducted within the guidelines of applicable Idaho code and city ordinances. And for the order of decision, Section 8, based on the findings of facts and conclusions of the law, the Caldwell Hearing Examiner hereby orders that case number SUP 210005, requested Solon Carlson for a special use permit, permit for Lexington Apartments, a multifamily development located on parcels R1489 5133, R1489 5136, and R1489 5137 in Caldwell, Idaho, in a C3 service commercial zone is approved with the following conditions of approval. And on page 3 of 17, the staff report, we have conditions 8.2 through 8.10. I will add a condition 8.11 to the effect that the design standards found on the Caldwell City webpage must be used for guidance in structural design to be approved upon completion by the staff prior to building permits issued. And with that, I will close the hearing. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda, item 3, case number ANN 2011, has also been requested to be continued to the hearing at the same time and place on May 11th, 2021. And, we'll take that up at that time. That leads us to the last item on the agenda, case number PUD 20-0001, and, request for planned unit development and a preliminary plat for Escalon Park, a single-family, multifamily residential development in an R1 low-density residential zone on parcels R34309-012 and R34297-010B, containing 118.49 acres. The subject properties are located 1,500 feet east of the intersection of Highway 2126 and Middleton Road in Caldwell, Idaho. And, with that, I'll turn the time over to the staff for the staff report. Ms. Root.
Thank you, Mr. Herring, Examiner. Debbie Root, Senior Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, and I have been sworn. As indicated, the applicant has applied for a planned unit development, Escalon Park subdivision. The PUD is requesting approval of a total of 531 dwelling units to include 429 buildable lots with 395 single-family residential units and 34 fourplex lots, with an overall gross density of 4.48 units per acre on 118.49 acres. The development property is currently zoned R1, low-density residential, and that has been, the annexation and zoning was completed a number of years ago, and that development did not come to fruition at that time, and so that was in 2006, December of 2006, this was annexed and zoned to low-density residential. The developer has provided a listing of dimensional standards that they are requesting variances to through the planned unit development process. And those have been provided to the hearing examiner in the staff report on page 2. The question that staff had was regarding the proposed Escalon Park standards for the front yard setbacks. There's a starred item that says the front property lines for fourplex buildings will be relocated to the common parking and access lot, and I'm not really sure how that refers to a front setback. So if the applicant could clarify that, that would be appropriate. And then additionally, there is a code reference in the development code whereby lots that are 45 feet or smaller, or less than 45 feet wide, that there be additional off-street parking provided in separate parking lots for those lots that are less than the 45 feet. And the applicant calculated that that would be 43 additional parking spaces because they have quite a number of lots that are less than the dimensional standard and less than 45 feet in width. There is, so in this application, there is a code reference under the PUD standards, development standards, and it is line item M, which requires that access to each buildable lot have street frontage on a public roadway. Now they've added a note, that's, so it's highlighted in yellow on yours, that 4 has access easement to a public roadway. That is not part of the code, that's something that they're kind of asking, but our attorney has advised that, this is not a line item that can be modified or varied by the hearing examiner in the PUD process. And so, at this time, we are, the planning and zoning department is working an ordinance through the, hearing bodies to, provide for internal circulation, within any of these developments. And at that time, you know, and the PUD ordinance is in process, and we'll have to change this code at that time, to allow for, the internal circulation routes even to be applicable, under this code, because it precludes it very specifically, according to the attorney. That's not anything we can do anything about. And so I was advised to provide a, condition that said they must provide public right-of-way to every buildable lot. And so the attorney's caveat is that once that, ordinance is changed, modified, the city can determine to not, accept the dedication of right-of-way, but that in order for us to move forward with this application, it has to be conditioned that the multifamily, lots will be, fronting public right-of-way. So, that, it's, you know, that's the reason for that, clarification and description in the staff report on, for that code reference, M, under the, development standards. Again, this development, there are quite a number of roadways that have to be developed that don't currently exist. And, so there's, you know, a lot of right-of-way dedication involved. The dimensional standards are within the comprehensive plan's density requirements, which is actually 6 units per acre, and they're at 4.48. As conditioned and as noted, with the exception of needing to place some number of units for parking, you know, additional parking spaces, if required on that off-street. I mean, the code is pretty clear on requiring it, and there is typically, whenever a new development comes in where there's already residential development, there's a lot of concern from the neighbors because the streets are just congested with parked cars on the street. And so to have densely designed residential development and assume that all the extra parking and additional parking can be on the street, or assuming that a 30-foot wide garage, if that is good enough to park 2 cars in, is questionable. And so to eliminate that code requirement for the additional off-street parking is, could be problematic within a development that has this many narrow lots. Staff is recommending approval overall of this development. I would like to see the Madden Spur drain covered, where the tiles, where it's proposed as a pretty significant ability draw or park and open space for the entirety of the development. It'll become an eyesore, big major weed patch when they don't get taken care of, and and potentially an attractive nuisance to children in the area. So we would recommend that, potentially that, Madden Spur drain be covered as well, a tile. And, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ruth. Let's go back while it's, the parking that's required, they're respectfully, requesting that be eliminated. How close are they to meeting those standards?
They've not provided additional parking lots for those, for that additional parking requirement. So they're assuming on-street parking is what we were indicated. Now, we did have a conversation regarding that and a number of other things here recently, you know, after the staff report was, after some things came to clarity, I guess, from, attending the city council hearing, because it was not after the staff report. We had that, prior to me completing the staff report, and where they, added additional amenities, including the clubhouses and pools, which is really great amenities for the development, and, kind of provides for amenities to each of the little segments of, development. But, I do not see additional parking on the property.
And so, Ms. Ruth, to meet the parking requirement, what are the numbers we're talking about that would normally fall under the ordinance?
Well, as calculated by the applicant, they would be required to provide 43 additional parking spaces in actual parking lots, off-street parking lots. And I think that's part of the issue, is that 43 may be excessive, I don't know, but that's what the code references. Because there are quite a number, I can't remember what the count is, I did count them, but I don't have it in my head. And Jane provided a count of 43, which was pretty consistent with what I saw. So they're providing, garages and, parking pads for much of the development, but again, there's a reason for the code when those lots become pretty narrow and, you dense pack people into those spaces, and that should not be on-street parking. A visitor coming is different than having, a bunch of on-street parking, because the garages are full of storage and cars are parked in whatever garage and on-street, or whatever parking pad, driveway, and on-street. So, part of the PUD ordinance is to allow for greater density, but in allowing for greater density, they have to provide more amenity to offset that density, so.
And Ms. Reed, is there something in the nature of, utility vehicle parking, you see it, some of these PUDs are for boats and campers, or anything of that nature?
I do not see any additional, open parking or parking areas for that, but you could ask the applicant on that.
I think that's true. Now, the issue about the drain, which you addressed, I happen to be a believer in safety and security, to cover that drain that's now proposed as an open drain, it's going to continue to function as an irrigation drain, and it's, be fenced off, or is it somehow be separated, in its open state, or would it just be flat, no fence or anything? What's the proposal here?
There is not a proposal to fence it that I'm aware of, or I did not read that in the application, but that can be asked of the applicant as well.
And is your impression that drain is, excuse me, there's an easement with the irrigation company to keep that alignment open the way it is? Or not open ditch, but, to maintain that easement?
Yes, the easement exists. Pioneer Irrigation Company and the Bureau of Reclamation are, I believe that's owned by the Bureau of Reclamation and with the management of Pioneer Irrigation. But there are a lot of developments around the city where those drainages are tiled, and it makes for much more usable space for the amenities of the development, and it improves the safety, but overall, it improves the overall appearance and reduces the maintenance costs of having that open ditch in the development. They'll have to have a license agreement and work with the irrigation district and the Bureau of Reclamation in order to tile it appropriately, but we believe that they could tile that Madden Spur lateral.
Thank you, David. Now, is there a comment from the Pioneer Irrigation District specific to that, or did they offer any comments?
I do not have a comment from them specifically, but it is irrigation season. So,
Yeah.
he was really good about responding in the winter. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's all the questions I had for that. We will, I'll turn the time over to the applicant, Ms. Suggs. Please state your name and address.
Good evening, Mr. Hearing Examiner and staff and guests. Jane Suggs with Jim State Planning, 9839 Cable Car Street, I always forget, and I have been sworn.
Thank you very much.
I have a PowerPoint, so I gave it to Rob. I'm going to run, not that, we're going to run through a few things, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of this. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Let me make sure I know how to do this. This way? Forward? Okay.
Yep, just the arrows.
Okay, let me pull out my information here. A little bit of, so I am here representing Escalon Park Trilogy Development. First, thank you for having this extra meeting. I know everybody's super busy, and I really appreciate the fact that everybody, it shows up on calendar as being an extra meeting today, so I appreciate that.
We need to serve.
So, Deb gave a pretty good overview of what we're trying to do. Let's start right here to look at just the vicinity. As Deb noted, it's zoned R1, and that's an 8,000 square foot lot. 118 acres of that lot is probably pretty boring and doesn't provide the mix of housing you would actually like to see in your city. We did kind of think about rezoning a portion of that, the north portion, to R2, but staff suggested keep the R1 and do a PUD, and that was a good suggestion because now we have an exceptional mix of lot sizes. You can see on our landscape plan at the top, we have the fourplexes, and we transitioned to smaller lots and then to standard lots, kind of on the south side of the west portion, and then that whole eastern portion is R1 lots, 8,000 square foot lots. So really good mix. This is actually a true community. We have renters, we have home buyers, we have singles, couples, established professionals, retirees. Everybody can find a place to live in this community, and we think that that's an incredible thing to have right here on the highway and new Santa Ana Avenue, which is a piece of a collector street that we will be constructing. I'm going to start at the the north end up here, showing the fourplex lots that are in a gridded pattern. They're kind of gridded like a single-family neighborhood, plenty of open space in the middle. Plus, this is really appropriate to put the multifamily near the highway. This is where you wanna put, you don't wanna put your estate lot backing up to a highway, you wanna put multifamily. Of course, our plan includes a 30-foot landscape buffer that's along the highway. And let me go ahead and address this, about, thinking that there was a way to continue to have this plat, as shown, and each of these fourplex lots are in separate lots. The 20-foot setback, right now, they're really shown at about 5 foot, in the lots, those fourplexes. What we found is, in other places, in Nampa particularly, and we've done this in Meridian too, I think, we just extended the lot, the front property boundary into the parking area because that parking area is a common area. So that is why, I just didn't wanna change the front setback. So it can be, right now shown as 5, but it could be 20, but it would move that front property boundary into the parking area, and that really doesn't impact anything. And now, let's talk a little bit about the access, because that isn't changeable. So instead of trying to put new streets in here, I propose that we take all those lot lines out. And I propose a condition that says this plat, until the zoning code changes, will be one buildable lot with fourplexes in it. You're familiar with Newton fourplexes, and that's one buildable lot with fourplexes in, one and there is a street that we front on. So you have a frontage on a street, and you have one buildable lot that has multiple units in it. And that's how you typically see apartment complexes, it's just one lot. That would be probably better, because I think you are thinking about changing your accesses. There's something, I mean, I'm happy to discuss as we go through, since we're not really in front of a lot of people. So I'm thinking that might be a way, instead of trying to rework our plat right now with streets, public streets, because we do have parking along those driveways, so you can't back into a public street. So it would change that, it would really reduce our density, which we think is appropriate. Obviously, we're below the 6 for our PUD. So I was thinking that maybe that would be a better alternative, is to condition that there would be no lot lines in the multifamily section until the zone change. No? Can you explain why? So
the reasoning or the attorney's counsel on that was that because we have those in process and they're through workshops, they're through the planning and zoning, they just are not quite there. They're gonna be, those ordinance changes will be in effect and done before your development develops, right?
that's a good
I mean, that portion of the development develops. And so Doug's counsel to me was that in order to move your application forward, to condition it so that you had to dedicate the right-of-way, or that it was required to dedicate right-of-way for public road frontage in where those lots are for the multifamily. But by the time we get to that point, maybe even some of it will be resolved before this goes in front of city council, then we can resolve that.
I think that's a great idea. My only issue is I can't really turn those driveways into public roads, but
Well,
that's what we want to do.
we understand that, and we did not realize that the code reference was there until we were reviewing your plat. It's like some of this stuff just pops out at us and we go, holy cow, now what are we gonna do?
Well, just for the record, I appreciate it, because every other jurisdiction I work in that has fourplex developments like this, we have used access easements to get to public streets. I mean, and that's for, and that turns out to be, as I understand it, and I might be speaking way outside of my expertise, but for, mortgages and loans and things, to to have a buildable lot access to public streets. And so we do that through access easements, and those are those driveways. So, I mean, I accept the condition, that those will need to be public streets, but I'm trying not to redesign that right now. I'm trying to have a condition that will have to be fulfilled before we get to that phase. Does that make sense?
Right, and at this time, we're not asking for a redesign of that, because we believe that our code changes that we have in process,
Right.
Will address this code reference that we did not know existed. You know, I mean, Jerome and I are new to, you know, and so this stuff pops up. Had you been, not in a planned unit development, not being developed under a PUD, that code reference doesn't apply. Our internal circulation would apply, or you'd need a variant of the common driveway code,
I see.
right?
Okay.
So we're just trying to, work with the code, because essentially, the attorney said we cannot just vary that particular code. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
And I think you addressed that in a condition of approval, which we certainly agree to, that, and you had mentioned that the revised code to allow residential lots with frontage on private streets or internal circulation streets, so. Yeah, and thank you. I was thinking that there was something we were gonna have to do, like right now, to keep going, but this sounds like a perfect response, so I appreciate the staff stepping in to let me know. Thank you.
One question, Ms. Stubbs, I assume you have more presentation
Yes.
beyond this issue,
Yes,
so let's get back to that. If you would please, finish your presentation, we'll come back, because I do want to discuss that in more detail.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so here we are, just talking about the north side. One of the things that Deb mentioned is we've done some additions. If you look in the open space there between, the green space in the fourplex area, you'll see the green space, and on the west side, we had already planned to do a playground, community playground and shelter, it says there. So, since we had a conversation with the development director for CDH homes, and he said, boy, we really need more than that. And so we chatted with him and said, yes, what we do, we need a pool and a clubhouse. He said, do it. So now we have a pool and a clubhouse just for the residents of the fourplexes. I think it's a great opportunity to kind of create some community and a place. We talked about the clubhouse, you know, a place where you take your kids whenever they want to have a birthday party or that type of thing. So hopefully without masks, but we'll see. Let's see. So we'll go on to, now we're talking about the transition of lots as we move forward with alley-loaded and front-loaded lots. And of course, we just kind of keep the standard lots along Santa Ana. We don't put the smaller lots along there, but you see the alley loads and you see the front loads. Now, in each home, single-family home, these are all detached single-family homes, they will have a two-car garage, and they will have an apron in front of the garage that will be 20 feet for parking, if you want to park there or for guests. In the middle, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the parking issue too. In the middle of that large area is the 7-acre open space, and that respects the Madden drain. That drain has a 110-foot easement on it. So you can see our pathway is 55 feet away from that drain. So it's just hard to see with the scale there about how big that is. We right now are planning to leave the drain open, and our plan is to have some grasses there that are pretty low maintenance, that are right next to the drain, but work with the Pioneer Irrigation to keep the area around the drain clear. I do have an email, just came yesterday to Sean Brownlee with Trilogy. I'd like to read it into the record from Kirk Myers. He's the assistant superintendent of the Pioneer District. This would be, dear Sean, this would be the same as the Noble Drain. You will need to get the BOR, the Bureau of Rec, to accept your design and permit any encroachments. The spur drain gets a lot of groundwater entering into it, just like the Noble, because it's open. If your design is approved and can handle all the flows, the Pioneer would consider having it, then they would consider having it piped. But that being said, in its open condition, the drain works well to convey all the water downstream. I don't know if that helps you decide, which way to go, but it's what he's got now. So we would consider doing that, but we've got to jump through a lot of hoops to get there. And part of it is trying to keep the drain open, so we'd be working with Pioneer to close it if they would let us, but, you know, going through the bureaucrats is gonna be interesting. Maybe you know better than I, but I have the copy of this that I can get.
He needs to sign an exhibit number to it.
Okay. Those are my stuff.
Okay.
And I apologize for not getting that earlier, but that was just sent to me from Sean, so we are planning in that open space area to have a community playground again, a picnic shelter, and a half basketball court. And we have a pathway that I just mentioned that's outside of the easement, and it runs from Santa Ana Avenue to Mason Creek. And of course, we're constructing the regional pathway that's along Mason Creek that's in your pathway plan. I'm gonna move south a little bit. Moving south of the park, we have some transition of some smaller lots and some alley-loaded lots. And some standard lots as we get further south towards, Skyway Drive. And then to the south of that is the Mason Creek subdivision, kind of south of us, so. In that area, if you'll look kind of in the middle of lot 14, is there a pointer here, can I?
Yeah,
The red thing? Or the, oh, there we go. Okay, it doesn't really show up on screen. Okay, so below the alley-loaded lots is a street, and then you see a little green space, kind of right in the middle of that area. We're actually gonna remove 3 of those lots, and we're gonna put in, and I'll show you what we're gonna do. Right there, you can see, we removed 3 lots, we're putting in a pool, a clubhouse, and a small parking area, and that's for the residents of Escalon Park. So outside, so we've got 2 pools now and 2 clubhouses, and an additional little parking space for people who might live on the other side of Santa Ana. And let's see. And finally, on the east side of Santa Ana, we have the lots that meet the 8,000 square foot lots. So we have a really nice transition. And even in that, if you see that linear, green space down at the bottom, even there is a, community, playground and a shelter. And kind of what this looks like, you know, gazebo or pergola, and then a little community thing. And it's kind of a more intimate space, so if you have kids on that side, they don't have to walk across the street. But there just seems like there's lots of amenities here for people to recreate. And then these gazebos are really nice when you just want to get together with your friends, and if we can do that without a mask today. I want to show you a few houses that we're going to build there. I think it's important to understand the mix of the housing types that we're building. These are some alley load homes. You'll see there's not a garage in the front. These are the alleys. So again, alley loads will have garages in the back and aprons and the alley. Here are some lots that are on the 36-foot wide lots. People kind of concerned about those, but I think they're very popular. We're doing them in Meridian and in Mountain Home recently. We've been asked to put in some smaller, narrower lots, I guess, so there's not a whole lot of maintenance on the side yards. So they still have 5-foot side yard setbacks. That picture at the bottom is one I just took this morning because it's in Meridian. Because I wanted to see one of them up front, not just some pictures that I knew that were in other, and I can come up with where these are. They're in several subdivisions. But this one, and you can see there's a truck parked in front of one of them, so there's room for parking. Let's go ahead and look at the 50-foot wide lots. These are your standard 1- and 2-story lots, 2-car garages. And I think the one on the upper one is probably one of my favorite little lots, little houses for that. I think it's really cute. It's kind of a craftsman looking thing. So I like that a lot. And then we have the big 60-foot plus wide lots. We have quite a few of those. And those are generally sometimes 3 cars. I talked to Mark over at CBH, and he said he's even at an ask to do a few designs with 4-car garages. So they're tandem. The little garage on the far side would be a tandem garage. But these are pretty good sized houses, and again, parking in the front plenty of room in that. Some of these have big setbacks, but ours will be the standard 20-foot setbacks. There are a few items to clarify. I think Rob has some clarification that he may want to talk about right now that was in the engineering memo that we talked about today, and he talked to our traffic engineer as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Thank you, Jane. Mr. Hearing Examiner, we, after review, I spoke with the applicant today, and we did want to make a few adjustments to the staff, the engineering staff report. And so, just real quick, if you turn to page 39 in your report, page 39, item number 6 talks about the construction of a single-lane roundabout at the intersection of Skyway and Santa Ana. And the intent there really is to provide an intersection that's going to be able to accommodate traffic in the future. But the way that this section is worded is probably a little bit, I feel like staff, we need to fine-tune this a little bit and work with the consultant to make sure, or the applicant, to make sure that what is being required is fair and it's not heavy-handed, I guess I would say. So under the right-of-way section, item number 6, I expect to make revisions to that paragraph there, item number 6. And then also under the street, on page 40, item number 7 will also be revised. And this will be done, we will work internally. Staff just wants to take a look at this a little bit closer, and we will work with the applicant to make sure that we are requiring something that we feel like is fair. And then also just another point of clarification under traffic mitigation on page 41, item number 4, is a little bit vague in the way it's worded, and so we will also fine tune that. And so, just so you know, there will be some revisions or corrections to the staff report by staff. I don't see any issue with this, keeping this from moving forward, and I feel like that we can get this worked out with the applicant and make sure that these revisions have been put together for whatever hearing comes next, should this get approved or recommended for approval.
Thank you, Rob. One question here while we're in this neighborhood. Is that going to maintain the roundabout as a requisite?
That will likely be the case. There is a chance that it could go to a four-way stop. I've spoken also with the traffic consultant who did the traffic impact study, and the determination was that this development did not generate the demand for a roundabout. The city, as has been our practice, what we try to do is look forward and see what's going to serve the area in the future when everything else fills out. And so that's one of the reasons why we want to make sure that what we're requiring is justified to this development and not overburdening a single development for traffic volumes that could be produced by other developments in the area. And so it would likely be a roundabout still, but there's a chance that it could change back to a four-way stop. We will take a closer look at that.
And those concerned streets, are they collectors?
They are both collectors.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Now, Ms. Stubbs, resume back to where you were headed.
Yes, thank you, and I realize
The sidebar.
and this is great, because, we do agree that we want to work with the city as much as possible to make sure these transportation systems work adequately. We will be building Santa Ana, or at least our half of Santa Ana, and, Skyway. So and in some places we'll build both sides of Skyway, like on the east side. We want to do that. It just surprised us to see that we would be building a whole roundabout when, the analysis had not really been created to determine that that was needed for traffic, as Rob just said. And we want to just sit down and work together and see what's the ultimate requirement there. And it's good to build it. We think that maybe we would build it whenever we are developing those three sides. And I think one of the conditions was you build a roundabout in the phase 1, and we're not even working on that east side yet. So definitely we'll be working with Rob, and we can have that all worked out before we go to city council, probably. Yeah, so a nodding yes. I've got to show you something really important, these fourplex buildings. These are fairly new, 12 Oaks, and this is on Victory, is it on Victory? Or Franklin. So really nice, kind of a different look, a little more, creative and modern look to these with the flatter roof, and it's not so bulky looking, I think. They've really done some improvements here to the fourplex building, so. Again, I wanted to talk a little bit about the parking, we did not show any additional parking. And so one of the things, and I might be corrected by the staff, but, one of the issues is when you have the smaller, or the lots that are 45 and smaller, we have, like I said, 170 of those, that somehow that reduces the amount of available parking spaces in the street. It's not so much that, I mean, our streets are set up so that you can park there, guests can park, just like in my neighborhood in the East End, but, they can park safely there, but when your lot is 36 and you have an 18-foot wide, it doesn't provide that. So one of the things I was hoping to do is to explain that when you have alleys, however, you don't have driveways in the front. And 73 of those lots are alley-loaded lots. So we were hoping that as a compromise, we might take 170 lots that are less than 45 and take 73 out of that calculation. So, and then divide that by 4, because it's a parking space for every 4 lots that are that way. So we dropped from 43 parking lots located off-street somewhere in this area to like 25. And I can show you my calculation. It's about 25 spaces that would have to be related. And, I talked to the developer about it. He goes, where we put it without, we'll lose some lots to put in parking spaces. Parking lots, off-street parking lots. We would rather not to do it, but if that is part of the code that cannot be changed, again, I respectfully request that we don't, but if that is, or if you have a magic number you would like to see, less than 25, I'd accept that as well. But now at 25, I think because we're talking about parking in front of houses and having enough parking for guests. Again, every one of these houses will have a 2-car garage, and have parking in front of the garage that will be available for 2 spaces. So every home has 4 off-street parking spaces, and then we would compromise by saying, let's put in 25 off-street parking spaces somewhere on our site that would address those. And again, we'll be losing lots to do that. And we'll also be losing a few lots at the corners, because now we are going to have to design around the roundabout, even though it doesn't take as much as a single lane. So that is one thing that I'd like to see if we could add or change our condition of approval. And other than that, I don't think there are any conditions that we adamantly disagreed with. We were just hoping that we might come to a compromise there. And thank you, Rob, for those clarifications, and I'll stand for some questions.
Thank you, Ms. Suggs. I have plenty of questions.
Okay?
Well, let's just pick up where you left off with the parking. I believe in good parking, particularly for these higher density, developments. And, we all know that's absolutely a necessity of some sort. The kind of solution you have, for example, with the alley loaded is one of my favorite solutions for the higher density, smaller lot sizes. And, have you taken a look at that somehow, with this fourplex configuration, where there's a lot of green space, but that could also presumably provide some parking?
For the fourplexes?
Yes.
Yes, sir. We have, 34 fourplex buildings. There are 4 in each one. That's 136 dwelling units. Your code asks for 1.5 spaces. That's 204, plus 1 space for every 8 units. That's another 17. That means right now your code would ask for 221 spaces. We're providing 347 spaces. So we're actually providing 2.6 spaces per unit, which is a bit higher than quite a bit higher than what is required by your code. Again, with the same idea that you have, that one of the things about the fourplex area, we want that to be a community in itself and not have bleed over into the streets from the fourplex. Now, we can't say, let me see if I can get back to
So
that.
what does the parking look like in that north end, fourplex space? I'm still, it's
It's,
vague to me how that actually is gonna be treated.
it is parking, let's see, is there a Zoom by chance? No? Okay, I'm going to see on my, did you download, the plat? Okay, so if you pull up,
Well, you can just describe where.
well,
what the purpose is
it's parking in front of the fourplex units and a driveway behind, so
Okay.
that's one of the issues. It is parking, it's 90-degree parking into, right in front of the fourplex units.
Yeah, okay.
So we have a lot of it, so there we go. And the page 2 probably is a better page to show you that, there you go.
Okay,
And so there
fine.
you have it, from the plat that I included with our stuff that I didn't put in my PowerPoint, because the landscape plan is much more attractive. So you'll see, we have kind of a gridded pattern. We wanted to make this look a little bit like a neighborhood, like a, you know, in the North End or something, you have gridded streets, and we try to continue to do that through the process, because everybody likes those. And so we have parking spaces in front of each one, and we have more than enough, as you can see, we have parking in front of the recreational areas and the open space areas as well.
And the parking that I see there is specific to each unit, or are there's the 17 extra?
Oh, there's, if you are required to do 221 and we're doing 347, we've got 100 extra spaces there for people who live there or guests. You know, 1.5 spaces per unit works, and it generally works, and if you know it, when you know Boise, they're trying to go down to 1 space per unit, even if it's a 1, 2, or 3 bedroom unit, because they're trying to get people not to have so many cars. We think probably people will have a couple of cars, so we have at least, so we have not only 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, we have 2.6 spaces per dwelling unit, so we have lots of spaces for guests who show up if somebody wants to have a party, or like that birthday party we were talking about, so. Plenty of parking in the fourplex area.
You know, development-wide, have you discussed the idea of a recreational vehicle parking, like you see it at?
No, in fact, we continue now to lose lots, and putting in some recreational vehicle parking would probably not help our density, and this is, you know, we are trying to approach 6, and we're at 4.5 or something, so, I don't think it would be impossible, because I've seen these houses before. Can I go back to my PowerPoint? Don't lose that yet. I'm just thinking that as I look through these lots, 8,000 square foot lots, and these homes, I've seen some of these homes with RV parking. Now, you know, be careful about what you wish for, because I don't think this is super attractive, but like one that's got, you know, it's pushed back a little bit, an RV spot might be appropriate there. I've driven through several neighborhoods in Meridian, and it seems like every other house has one, so, that's a possibility, but no, we did not set aside parking lots for that. Again, trying to create community and not a sea of parking, but, you know, I understand what you're talking about, making sure that we have parking for those. And to tell you the truth, I don't know the closest place for storage, but I can find that out for the city council.
Yeah, so along those lines, have you done things like, internal circulation, bike ped, to further encourage, the use of those modes of transportation other than automobiles?
Yes, let's go back and take a look at, so again, we're putting sidewalks on every street. We have, as you look through here, you see the little cut through here that goes to the regional pathway. Our blocks are fairly small, so we don't have a lot of extra pathways through the blocks. Let's see, over here, again, I mean, I even talked to the designer, our engineer about this, about putting in some extra pathways, and it didn't really look like with our short block lengths of 6 or 7 houses that you actually needed to put another pathway between. So, and you can see there at the end of the cul-de-sac on the north side, there's a pathway that goes out to Santa Ana. There'll be, of course, sidewalks on Santa Ana. So, I mean, I think we do have lots of opportunities. And then, of course, the big is the pathway that kind of runs through the middle of our open space, which we think will be, as it connects to Mason Creek, and then you can wrap around. We find out that walking is probably one of the best amenities. I mean, even if it's just on a sidewalk and then going by the drain and then going up by Mason Creek, that's one of our best amenities, is, and that's why you have a regional pathway program, is to put those along the major, creeks, so. Let's see, and that's a good picture of it, because all along behind those houses and beside the drain is a pathway, and therefore there's a connection pathway, and there's one, we can make sure that the pathways in those drainage areas, down in the southwest corner, we'll make sure there's a pathway there.
Yeah, as far as the northern part in your, county of excess lots there, do you anticipate, perhaps that absorbing the perceived shortcoming according to the ordinance, that there will be available parking there if people understand that's there for open use? Is that part of your formula?
I don't really understand the question. Tell me what you mean.
Well, the parking in North End here, you say you have an excess of 100 or so, and you anticipate that being used to essentially compensate for?
No, I don't anticipate that being used for the single-family homes. I anticipate that being used by people who live in the fourplexes. I take it back. There might be a few there on that west side. You might find somebody wanting to go across and use some of that parking. But no, the 25 off-site parking spaces that I'm hoping we can compromise with would actually be in the single-family area. So we would not be asking people, I'd love that, but I think that that's not getting to what your code says, is you want those pockets of parking to be located in places where are close enough to people. Now, I'll tell you, it will take some HOA maintenance to keep people from putting their trailers there, right? And that's what we get when we do off-site parking like that. Again, would rather not put anything like that and have, not have that asphalt interspersed around my, houses. But if that is a requirement of the code, I would, again, ask to compromise that and not put 43 parking spaces somewhere around the smaller lots, so.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Now, moving along, on the drain canal, my predilection is to cover that, just because, I've been a farmer all my life, and I've literally worked irrigation ditches since I was a boy, and it is very attractive nuisance, it's my personal feeling, but I would like to see safety measures there. Excuse me, the safety measures are obviously to contain the drainage, and it might be the simple solution. I also appreciate the aesthetics concern there, and it also, something I deal with constantly is the drain tends to collect every kind of noxious weed on the planet, and it's a constant struggle. This is what I spend my free time doing, weeding out irrigation. But anyway, so I'm looking at that, from those safety aspects of just the overhead it takes to maintain that as an open waterway.
I don't disagree with the things you're saying, but a lot of this doesn't rest with you or me. It rests with the Pioneer Irrigation District and the Bureau of Reclamation. If they don't want it tiled, then we won't be able to. I can't, we're gonna be, and of course, when I talked to Sean about this, he says, oh yeah, and I said, well, how about, since we have some regulated areas from Mason Creek, we've got to run the study to make sure that Mason Creek stays in its banks, but right now, it looks like some floodway fringe comes up into that area, and I said, oh, well, then we'll be dealing with the Corps of Engineers and IDWR, and it's kind of that joint permit process we go through, and, I think your condition addresses that pretty clearly. It says pilot if it's allowable, right? So that is something we could pursue, but I can't guarantee, I'd hate to have the plat not approved because we couldn't get those things done, or it was preferred by Pioneer not to have it that way.
So my understanding that is there is part of the floodway fringe, on your subject property?
There is a little bit, yeah, there's a little bit on the, let's see, it's on my plat, on one of the pages, it shows a little bit of the floodway fringe, and I think you addressed that in this as well, that we have to
Okay.
abide by all that, so.
Yeah, I don't have to see that, Rob, but
Yeah.
that's
Okay,
just a point of information.
Yeah. so, I mean, there are quite a few, constraints on the property with the Mason Creek and the drain and buildings to collector streets and being next to the highway. So we feel like that we've done a really good job of addressing lots of different housing types, and lots of opportunities for people to live here, with an odd-shaped piece of property, so.
Okay, so the next topic, the roadway, the rights-of-way issue, is what the ordinance says. We have to deal with that, but we're looking for middle ground, renovation to the private road type of standards, that seem to be lacking in the ordinance, and you're sort of caught on the cusp of that. But we have to deal with what's there now, and, so, the design you have, circulation design, I think, is it accommodating, is it able to accommodate right of way as it is? You would not have to change your plat if right of ways were required.
And you're talking about in the fourplexes area.
Yeah.
I don't believe that you can allow, we have 26-foot drive aisles, and we have parking spaces that are 90 degrees off of those. I don't have this, but Rob would know, I don't believe you can have backup parking into a public street. So the answer would be no. However, your staff has provided a really safe condition of approval 10.22, which says that we have to have that frontage, but it also has a caveat there to address the things that Debbie was talking about how we're working to that end, because we want to be able to have driveways like we're showing. So, I think that condition of approval, without having to do a redesign today, would be exactly what we need to do, because that's gonna change. I mean, we can move forward, and as she said, that may change before we even get in front of city council, so, yeah, I think we're very happy with the condition of approval. And we look forward to, use my design, or let me testify to help that condition, if that is something, because I think it's very beneficial to the city to have opportunities like that.
Right, I just wanted to avoid a rock and hard spot situation with that should it be required, that you would have the ability to make the design changes to make that acceptable.
Let's cross that when we get there, because if it turns out that the city council says, no, we wanna have every fourplex, every apartment building on a public street, then that changes a lot of things. If they're platted lots, and then again, we would have to think about a redesign. But I think the staff has really come up with the best solution on that condition.
All right. Just have to look at my notes here, talked about the roundabout. Okay, I think we covered the issues that I was curious about. And, I think, I'd like to go to the staff. Do you have any open questions on this? We've had a pretty good discussion on those points. With that, then, I'll close the public hearing, and we'll move along to the decision dates.
Mr. Hearings Examiner, I know you just closed it, but can I say one thing?
Yes, please.
I very respectfully request that you approve our PUD and a plat, and move us forward to city council, and we will be working with the staff on the things that they've asked us to address. But thank you very much, again, for your time, and the staff's very considerate time when the staff report, since the staff report's been put together.
Well, thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. And we have no other, person signed up for testifying for, against, neutral. So with that, we'll close the hearing. And the issues we're discussing, I wanted to get into a level of detail that we did, so that it is on the record. I also believe the, conditions of approval, as modified, during our discussion here, do tend to address that. It's a huge project, it's a good project. You know, there's obviously a lot of, design effort in this that, I think, provides a very livable and sustainable environment, for the city of Caldwell. And, I will go ahead with the findings. Let's see. Now, looking on, page 16, for this case, PUD 20-00001, the Esplanade Park PUD subdivision, the findings and facts are as follows. The Caldwell hearing examiner accepts the facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and the evidence list. All adopted city ordinances, standards, and codes were used in evaluating the application. Furthermore, the conclusions of law for the PUD and the preliminary plat, as required by ordinance, the Caldwell hearing examiner has the authority to hear this case and recommend to the Caldwell City Council that it be approved or denied. The public notice requirements were met, the hearing was legally noticed and posted, and the hearing was held and conducted under the requirements of Idaho Code and city ordinances. For the recommendation, the PUD and preliminary plat, based on the findings of facts and conclusions of law, the Caldwell hearing examiner hereby recommends to the mayor and city council, in case number PUD 21, a request for a planned unit development and preliminary plat for Esplanade subdivision with 531 residential units consisting of 10, 34, consisting of 34 multifamily lots, 136 units, 395 single-family residential lots, and 79 common lots on 118.49 acres for parcels R34309012 and R3429701 0B with the designation of R1, low-density residential, is approved with the conditions of approval listed in section 10. I'm looking at section 10, page 17 of the staff report. We have conditions of approval of 10.1 through 10.27. I have to stop this point and ask the staff, in the motion that how is the drainage, covering the drainage, addressed in these conditions of approval? Or does that need an additional condition of approval to address that issue?
It is in a condition.
Yeah.
1026.
No, there should have been one about filing that during.
I just don't want to duplicate a condition.
Is it in the engineers?
No. My conditions are out of order here on my table. May not have conditioned that, Mr. Hearing Examiner, as alluded to in my testimony, that I feel that it should be covered. And in a phone conversation with Ms. Suggs and Sean Brownlee, there was discussion about covering it, about further discussion with them regarding that maybe they could cover the Madden Spur, but, not Mason Creek, which we were not asking to do Mason Creek, but, more to tile that Madden Spur, but that would require that, you know, if I believe we could require them to, or condition it to tile the irrigation ditch, and then if providing written, I guess, information from the Pioneer Irrigation and the Bureau of Reclamation, which is really that they, you know, absolutely do not want that tiled for whatever reason, then that's where we should go with that. But, these irrigation facilities running through these developments and the weed management that does not occur by the irrigation district at all, is, you know, problematic on the whole for a really nice development to have a major weed patch running, 110-foot weed patch running through their development and open space.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Root. I'm adding a condition, 1028, to that effect, that the city would like to see, the drainage covered or tiled in accordance with the Bureau of Rec and, the Pioneer Irrigation District, wishes, in that regard. And for the Manson drain. I'd also like to add condition 1029 to address the issue of the required parking. The applicant has made a suggestion that they have solutions for 25 spaces where those the calculation is for 43 spaces. I'd direct a condition of approval that the applicant find the adequate places for those 25 spaces and to accommodate excess parking. And again, that would be in a configuration worked out with the staff. So we'll add 25 additional spaces for visitor parking.
Could you potentially indicate off-street?
Yes, so for off-street parking and, you know, to avoid on-street parking. Find the rest of the conditions suitable, and with that clear, I hope with these two added conditions, recommend approval for conditions 10.1 through 10.29. And with that, I close the hearing and close this meeting out. Thank you very much.
I'm taking some
parking spaces. Take your suggestions on parking lot.
I don't know, you know, I mean, the opportunity is for you to try to sell that less
To the city council.